Today on Hearts of Heroes, one of the largest single wildfires in California's recorded history traps hundreds of people.
I'm going, is this the way we die?
Until the National Guard flies in to make a daring rescue.
We just made the request. We said, hey, we're going to try to go get them.
That's the calling of a hero.
Wildfires are one of the most feared natural disasters on the planet, and rightfully so. They can move erratically and at a screaming pace, so it's no wonder it could be easy to be caught off guard, caught up, and in need of rescue. Fortunately, that rescue can come from above.
Mammoth Pool in Central California is a man-made reservoir 3,000 feet up in the Sierra Nevada mountains. While it was originally built for hydroelectricity production, it has become a popular spot for camping, boating, and fishing. Dennis Drake has been coming to these mountains for years.
Been camping all my life. I've always enjoyed it. I love the area. It's beautiful up there.
On Labor Day weekend of 2020, Dennis and his family packed up their gear and headed to the reservoir. Christina Lopez and her family were also taking advantage of the 3-day weekend.
We were going camping just to get away from everything and just trying to relax.
But this vacation would be anything but relaxing. As campers woke up in the morning, they could have no idea just how frightening it would be by sunset.
I was up about 6:30, about 8:39. Noticed a little smoke in the area, but we knew that there were a lot of fires going on up in the northern part of the state.
After breakfast, Dennis and his brother took a short drive up to the reservoir.
So we get on up there and we see the fire coming up over the ridge, not 10 miles away from us. It's like, oh, this isn't good. And we're noticing that in this meadow, there's spot fires.
Dennis and his brother immediately headed back to camp to alert their family and call authorities.
We're getting in there and we're going, everybody, we gotta pack up, head to the reservoir, we gotta go now.
Meanwhile, Christina and her family also noticed a looming fire, but they were told that they were not in any immediate danger.
And then we went down to the lake, and as we went to the lake, we saw that there was another fire.
Within minutes, the fire was erratic.
Then they told us that we need to evacuate. There was only one road leading out. There was fire on pretty much every side.
Christina and her family were trapped in the car with no way out.
That's when we messaged our family and told them that we were surrounded by fire and it didn't look good.
With no other option, they had to turn around and head back to the reservoir.
They told us to make our way down to the lake because that was the only other way that you could go. It was a one-way road, and jump into the lake if we needed to for our safety.
Even though they were trapped in a wildfire, the reservoir was the safest place for these people to wait it out. And being near a large body of water may have saved many people's lives that day.
Dennis and his family were also caught in the gridlock as they tried to escape the fast-moving flames.
We've got 65, 70 vehicles all trying to go 2 miles down the road to the reservoir at the same time. And there's fires on both sides of this road going down, and we're getting wind. We're being hit by small embers. I'm going, is this the way we die?
Dennis and his family finally made it to the reservoir, but the fire was surrounding them.
We're about 40 yards from the intensity of the fire, which is going up trees and everything else, creating its own winds, its own weather system.
There were fire tornadoes going off in front of us. There was it looked like it was raining fire because of the ash and the soot.
A firestorm is an intense and destructive fire that is accompanied by high winds. A major inferno can actually make and sustain its own wind, thanks to the extreme heat versus the surrounding air. Dennis knew the only way they'd survive was to get in the water.
It's getting hot, 120, 130, 140 degrees. Embers shooting all over the cars. We decided to get into the lake. 60-degree water from 120-degree air. Yeah, it shock to the system.
They would have to wait for the fire to pass.
We were in the reservoir for probably 45 minutes to an hour before the fire actually died down enough to where we knew we weren't gonna be too hot. So we get on out, and of course, I'm starting to make phone calls. Nobody knows where we're at. Nobody knows that we're in trouble outside of the group that we're in.
The stranded campers began calling for help. Surrounded by those flames, they got some disheartening news.
We were told that people weren't going to be able to come to rescue us because the conditions were so poor.
Coming up, with sunset approaching, the trapped campers would need a heroic rescue.
We look on over, there's 2 helicopters looking for us.
Now, more than ever, it's important for people, families, and businesses to be prepared and know what to do before, during, and after a catastrophe.
Trust me, by being informed, making a plan, having a safety kit, and getting involved, communities all over the world can work together. That will truly make a difference, not just for you, but for everyone.
Listen to them. I do. And by cooperating with our heroes, we'll each have the knowledge and power to help make tomorrow better than today.
In September of 2020, the Creek Fire engulfed parts of the Sierra Nevada mountains in California. As the fire closed in from all sides, hundreds of campers were forced to jump in the Mammoth Pool Reservoir to survive. Roads blocked, the sun setting, the trapped families had no idea when or how they'd make it out.
Our plan initially was going to be, we're gonna be here for a few days at least. 3 to 5 days is what we were thinking.
What the stranded campers didn't know was that the California National Guard was already mobilizing for a rescue.
I was told that it was 30 people that needed to be evacuated, so we were planning off of that.
Officer Rosamond is a Chinook helicopter pilot. These dual rotor crafts can carry large amounts of cargo and around 35 passengers. Meanwhile, pilot Kip Gotting and co-pilot Irvin Hernandez followed behind in a smaller Black Hawk helicopter. But this was not going to be an easy mission.
It was a little vague as to where the exact location is that the people need to be picked up. We were told there were approximately 30 people, and so we were trying to figure out, are they all in one location?
The issue? They weren't alone up there. There were several other aircraft trying to put out the fire.
And since they have air tankers dropping retardant on the fire, we were told to hold off, and so we requested to go down south, come in through the east.
But the amount of thick smoke made the rescue extremely dangerous, if not impossible.
We tried to get into the fire area, and the smoke was just way too thick for us to transition in.
Meanwhile, at the reservoir, Christina started helping injured campers. Fortunately, she's a nurse.
And I started helping people, and people started bringing me their first aid kits and pain medication to help the people who were burned. It helped to put what I was going through on the back burner and be able to help people.
When the sun finally set, it was too dark for the tankers to keep flying. But the National Guard was not going to give up.
So we just made the request. We said, hey, we're gonna try to go get them.
With no sunlight, the pilots needed night vision goggles to find the stranded campers. Through the heavy smoke and flames, they made their way to the reservoir.
We look on over, there's 2 helicopters looking for us. Everybody's just shining flashlights, turning on their headlights to their trucks just to make sure that they saw us, and they landed, and it was like New Year's Eve. It was like the best thing that's ever happened to any of us.
But there were so many people, certainly more than the pilots were prepared to evacuate.
Once we arrived, we could see there were probably 20 or 30 vehicles and a couple motorhomes, and we knew immediately that there was going to be multiple turns to get everyone out.
With the fire still raging, the pilots wanted to help as many of the campers as they could.
The biggest hazard ended up being the amount of people we took on the second trip. We ended up at 102, over triple of what the aircraft's designed for. We were over our maximum gross weight that we normally operate at, and that causes a lot of dynamic stresses on the aircraft.
After hours in the air and 3 round trips, the pilots rescued more than 200 people. It wasn't until later that these brave men realized what they had accomplished.
Once we actually got some time to sit down and think about it, it was pretty amazing. We knew we did something unprecedented. I don't think the Guard has really done anything like that before.
But their heroism was not lost on the people that they saved that Labor Day weekend.
This mother and her newborn, before she went off, she tapped me on the shoulder and said thank you, and that really stuck with me. That expression of relief and just gratitude in her eyes, and that's when it started to really hit me.
Thank you so much for everything you do and everything you do every day, not just the day that you rescued us and were our heroes and gave us a second chance.
They could have turned around, you know, like they were recommended to do, but they didn't. There was life on the line, and they decided, we're going to do it. And I can't express my gratitude to them enough.